Public Law 1975 entitled Open Public Meetings Act. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as specified in the Act. Proper notice of this open public meeting was provided in the notice of May 1st, 2024. Said notice was posted at the entrance of the Board of Education offices, mailed to the Nutley Township Clerk, sent to Nutley, advertised in the Star Ledger on May 3rd, 2024, and posted on the district website. Can everybody please stand for the flag salute? To the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Balsamo? Here. Mr. Battaglia? Here. Mrs. Dancheck Martin? Here. Dr. D'Elia? Here. Mr. Fraginels?
Here.
Mr. Kaczynski? Here. Mrs. Quirk?
Here.
Mr. Scotti?
Here.
Mr. Ferraro?
Here. At our last board meeting on May 7th, 4 finance items relating to the budget were tabled, and a motion was made to adjourn the May 7th meeting. Was made not to adjourn the May 7th meeting, but to continue the meeting to this time and date tonight. This motion was made in order to allow the state monitor more time to review the budget prior to our vote to send it to the executive county superintendent, as we are required to do by law. This meeting is a continuation of the May 7th meeting and is limited to only those 4 finance items that were tabled at that time. I will now let our board attorney speak to the public comment portion of tonight's meeting.
Good evening, folks. Since this is a continuation of the previous meeting, the public comment is going to be limited to the 4 action items, the 4 voting items that are on for tonight, as it is a continuation. All the other rules still apply, in terms of we can't comment on personnel, we can't comment on students, and in terms of, vulgarity, things like that aren't, but you guys are never like that. So anyway, but so just so you're aware, it's going to be limited to just the 4 action items. Thank you.
There will be a public meeting on Monday, so any public comment or questions regarding all school-related matters can be addressed at that time. Does anyone wishing to come up and comment on the 4 items, please come up?
The resolution
There
items?
there are 4 resolution items, finance resolution items that were tabled. So is there agendas out there? I'll read them out. Okay. Finance resolution number 1, adoption of the final budget as approved by the interim executive county superintendent. So on May 7th, our superintendent presented the budget for 24-25. So we did not vote that night to approve that budget. So that's what we're doing tonight, is taking the vote on that budget. Along with that resolution number 1, there were 3 additional resolutions. Resolution number 2 was the use of bank cap. Resolution number 3, adjustment for enrollment. And resolution number 4, adjustment for healthcare costs. Those were the 4 resolutions that were tabled on the May 7th meeting. So those are the 4 items that are going to be voted on tonight. So if anyone has any comments, they can come up.
Brian Canova, 147 Beach Street. Good evening, everyone. I was going to make a suggestion, but actually it probably would apply to the what you were discussing. One would be, it's the nature of the way the meetings are presented to the public. Anyone looking at social media realizes that the townspeople aren't aware when BOE meetings will include public comments, and I think tonight is a good example of that. I know it eventually shows up in the agenda, but you could promote this on the school district's homepage with a link saying tonight is open to public comment, not linking to the agenda. Sometimes the agenda is posted shortly before the meeting. Is this something you would consider? Language that says tonight is open for public discussion, tonight is not open for public discussion.
Sir, if I may comment just from the legal perspective, all public meetings have to have some form of public comment if it's a public meeting. In this instance, since it was continued, there is public comment, but it's only to the 4 action items because those are the only action that the board is taking. But at every public meeting under law, there has to be some type of public comment.
All right. Well, if that could be mentioned on the homepage, so I'm not spending 2 hours of my time drafting questions, which you're not going to hear tonight. One of them, I think, would fall under the adoption of the final budget, which I believe involves staffing. Superintendent Bania, at the May 7th meeting, you said, all resources necessary for the security and preschool remain, in all caps, unchanged. It was met with applause. We're very happy to hear that. That was for the 2024-2025 budget. Security, preschool, unchanged. 7 days later, you're presumably voting on the adoption of the final budget from May 7th. We're down a security officer in Spring Garden as of, I would imagine, the end of June. A retired Nutley police officer of some distinction, not some distinction, of distinction. Will there be security in place to fill that void in Spring Garden? And if so, will they come from a different school, from a position that will or will not be backfilled?
Thank you for your question. Yes, in our restructuring, we have someone who runs security in central office, which is no longer needed. So we are going to move that person into a building and then move people around to cover the Spring Garden resource. Yes.
So we're down a position in security overall.
We had a position in central office that oversaw our whole security team. They will do that, but at a building to use resources efficiently.
All right, I guess I'll see you on Monday for the rest of the show.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments?
Hi, good evening. My name is Vincent Festa. I live at 29 Newman Avenue. My statement, I'll wait for Monday, but my question was, you guys had a PTO member at, I don't know if it was, I don't know what school exactly, stating how the media centers, that we need more places like this throughout the school system. But if that's what you're saying, why are we letting media specialists go?
So I think that individual was referring to the space, that we have two media centers in the district, one being here at this school, one being at the high school.
What about Lincoln School? That's not a media center?
No, well, I think that's what the person was referring to, was the 2 centers
But if you
here.
want them throughout the school, how are you getting rid of people when you can't fill the positions that you have? You're already short a media specialist.
So thank you, sir. And I was the one that made the comment when I was in the media library in the middle school. And my statement was that we need to utilize the middle school media space and the high school media space more efficiently, connecting those 2 rooms with incremental programs that are not being utilized today. It was more of a statement around those spaces specifically, not necessarily about the libraries and the elementaries. But I think overall, those are areas in the district where I prefer we grow, not reduce.
But how are we growing by letting go of personnel that run those media spaces?
We are restructuring our personnel to cover all the media spaces.
So does that mean that our students are going to be split between media specialists?
No, our students will have the same experience in library media that they've had this year.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Hello. I wanted to ask about, related to the termination of personnel in the high schools, elementary schools. What's the process for how or why they're being terminated?
Yeah, I'll comment just on the legal part first, and then they can comment. Any personnel decisions come from the chief school administrator, the superintendent. That's where those come from and are set by law in terms of the process of it. But the superintendent is the chief school, the board members are not legally allowed to get into the involvement of that. So.
That's unfortunately, due to financial reasons, we had to reduce our workforce in order to balance our budget. We never want to reduce in our teachers and our anything from top to bottom, but it's something we have to go through right now in order to balance our budget. We have only so much revenue coming in, and we only have so many resources to spend in our schools. That process happens through looking at where the needs are for students and then reallocating resources most efficiently.
See, I understand that, the need to, I guess, fire some teachers, but what criteria when, say, if a teacher wouldn't be tenured, what criteria would they not meet that leads them to be fired or terminated?
And again, matters of personnel, they can't legally talk to, get the details of that kind of stuff, how he makes his decisions and what's involved in that with individuals. By law, they can't comment on.
And that's just how it is?
Yeah.
All right, that's all. Thank you.
Christian Sebastiano, 443 Prospect Street. So I'm going to ask his question in a different way. I'm not asking about individuals. I'm not asking how you decided Joe versus Sally. There's criteria you use in general. Like, we all have it in our jobs when you decide who you're going to keep, who you're not going to keep in different times when you have to do cuts. So when you have somebody who's been here X amount of time, or someone has had X amount of people complain about them, like, how do you use those factors? I'm not asking about any individual circumstance. I'm not asking about any specific person. How do you go through that process? Because that you should be able to answer, because that's not about anybody specifically.
Yeah. So every year, we go through the process of evaluating staff members as per New Jersey Department of Ed code using a framework. Our multiple evaluators look at people. They have a performance and a practice assessment score. At the end of each year, the administrative team, the evaluators, discuss performance based on what was observed and what language was used to describe that. The administrators meet and decide on performance non-renewals and bring people back. That process happened weeks ago, and those decisions were made weeks ago. What we went through this week was a downsizing due to based on needs of students, where we can offer classes and different things based on certificate and other things of that nature. It's very prescribed by code with non-tenured teachers, how that happens.
So if you're tenured, you're protected, though?
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, and sir, just so you know, like kind of the distinction, there's two types of like non-renewals or RIF between, there's a distinction between RIF and non-renewals. So you have your typical non-renewals due to whatever they have. Then you have your RIFs, which go by non-tenureds first. And then if there are tenured people by statute, then if there are, it goes by seniority.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Jennifer Von Roth, 32 Colonial Terrace. I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. The budget is being restructured because somebody either purposely or inadvertently made an egregious financial error, correct? And the restructuring of the budget is now being placed, the burden of it is being placed on innocent teachers who are now losing their jobs and the residents of the town, because now you're increasing our education taxes. Is that correct? Am I correct in that assessment?
The deficit for the 23-24 school year is being addressed by a corrective action plan applying to the state for a loan and an advance of state aid, which triggered the state assigning a state monitor who is working through all financial control, as well as working through securing the loan amount from the Treasury Department for this year. Next year's budget is based on revenues coming in. The available revenues in this preliminary budget in the amount of about $81 million utilize 3 waivers that are available to the district as directed by the county office at the time of the preliminary budget to use bank cap waivers, health waivers, as well as enrollment increase waivers. That is the money set to build this budget. The problem came when we had a budget last year that, with the normal increases in year-to-year operations, put that budget well over our revenues coming in. So the cuts are due to matching the programs we have in district to the available revenues we have coming in. The financial crisis this year is in the amount of a loan coming from the state, which is not paid in next year's budget, which is paid over 10 years interest-free with the help of a state monitor.
And where is that money coming from to pay back the loan?
Right. So
From the firing of teachers, again, who had nothing to do with the egregious error that's been made.
Yeah.
And the rest of that money, what, coming from the residents of the town, who again had nothing to do with what created this whole issue to begin with. So at the end of the day, in the simplest terms, right? In the simplest terms of it, it's coming from the teachers and it's coming from the people who live in this town. And there's no accountability and there's no responsibility putting on the parties who have caused the error to begin with. And now we're sending this message to these kids that people can do whatever and have no accountability for it. And it's affecting the kids. My kids came home yesterday and the first thing that I was told was, guess what? My English teacher, my history teacher, they got fired. They're not coming back. What kind of message are we sending to the kids?
I understand, we all do, all right, but we're in difficult times right now, and we have to get back to a baseline which is sustainable, okay, which is based on revenues that are reliable revenues that are coming in. So I don't know if you were at the presentation last week.
No, I was not.
Okay, but I would recommend that you go online, you watch the video, that we had a full presentation on the budget for 24-25. Went through all of the issues, the difference between the revenue and the program that exists today was a $13 million difference, of which $3 million of that was made up by additional state aid that we received for next year. And then you take into account the tax levy increase that we're going to be, looking at tonight. In addition to that, there were cuts that were made, restructuring throughout the district. So that's, you have to create a balanced budget going into next year. And unfortunately, there was difficult decisions that are made in doing that.
Well, I think somebody needs to look outside the box a little bit and start taking the revenue from other resources other than the people who live in the town and the teachers that teach our children who live in the town. Don't you think? I mean, there's got to be other options than raising our taxes and firing teachers. No?
Yeah, unfortunately, those revenues are made primarily from the tax levy. There's state aid, there's federal aid that we receive, but majority of that is from the tax levy. That's not something that's unique to Nutley. That's something that occurs throughout the whole state. That's the way the system is.
Right, but the gap there is now again being imposed on people who have nothing to do with this. I just think you guys need to figure out a better way, because this solution it's deplorable, quite frankly. And it's disheartening and it's disgusting to me to even be involved in any of this. So I thank you for your time.
Venus Hernandez, 274 East Passaic Avenue. I want to address the tax. Oh, I want to address the taxes, the burden that it's going to put on the people in the district. My mortgage already went up $600 a month as a single parent, and by doing over 5% tax raise, doubling what you would normally do, I'm probably going to have to sell my house and move. The burden it's going to be put on us in the district. And I saw that, like, I think by doing that, by next year, the deficit will be at 0. Is that correct?
So the deficit that has occurred in this year's budget, that's this year. That's being addressed
Okay.
by a loan that is going to be given to the district by the state.
But have you guys thought about maybe just doing the standard rate? I understand you're trying to make up the difference from the mistake, whatever it was that happened. But seriously, imagine the families here in town that now have to really figure out what they're going to do because of this, how the tax is going to put the burden on them. Like, my mortgage is already up $600 from the tax increase the last year, a month.
No, and we understand that, and we are all taxpayers as well. We understand that. But there's two things that are, you just want to make sure we're clear. The deficit that occurred this year in the 23-24 budget is being addressed by a loan that we're going to receive from the state.
Yeah, but you're also raising the taxes.
That's the tax levy increase.
It's
is going-
usually 2 point something percent. You're doing double.
Yes, and those were waivers that were directed to us by the Department of Education through the county offices that were available to the district. And that-
Because of this mistake?
because of the difference between the tax revenue that's coming in, the revenues that are coming in versus the expenses.
So the Department of Education raises it, and now it's going to hurt us and put the burden on us in the district.
So the Department of Education doesn't raise it. They're recommending those are the options that we have, okay? But there is an issue with the budget right now, the revenues, the reliable revenues that from the 24-25 school year versus the expenditures is a $13 million difference. You have to close that gap. And there's only so many ways you can do that. We received an additional $3 million in state aid. There's restructuring that resulted in somewhere around $7 million.
Yeah, no, I understand all that, but the fact is that you guys are raising it to 5%, and that's a big burden on a lot of the people in town. Myself, like I said, I'm a single parent. I don't get child support. And yes, I make good money, but my mortgage already went up $600. I don't think I can afford another raise like that.
And we understand. We
And that's
do.
just me. I can't even imagine everyone else. I don't think you do understand.
But we do, but also if you don't increase the tax levy, you're going to have to make that up through additional restructuring, additional cuts. There's only so many ways of doing that. And so we've had multiple meetings, many meetings where we've had a lot of different.
Yeah, but now this is going to put a burden on.
I understand, but we've also.
Where you have people who've been in this town for many, many, many years. And now some people are going to probably have to sell their homes because they can't afford it.
I understand. And we've had meetings where we've had many residents who came up and said that they didn't want to see this program touched or that program touched or this group touched. Unfortunately, there's only so many things you can do. Raising the tax levy, that's one of the things that we can. And that was one of the recommendations made is to go to this amount, which is 5.27. There's nobody up here that's happy about that. We are not happy about that.
No, I understand that. That's fine, but I don't know.
No, but I just
don't agree that it should be 5.27.
And I understand, but if we lower that number, you have to make up the difference somewhere.
So find another way where it's not going to make people have to sell their homes, possibly.
I understand.
Because of the raise in the taxes.
But where do you make those adjustments?
Figure it out.
90% of your, look, I understand. So.
Go to the town, ask them for help. They have this one Nutley thing, ask them for help. Yeah, have them sell the Ciccolini. That's just literally an empty lot now because the building collapsed.
Okay, well, we're two separate entities. So,
It doesn't, but you can still go to them. You can still go to them and ask them. And then even if you get $1 million that way, you can then lower it just a little bit where the taxes don't get raised that much. That's my biggest issue right now is the taxes.
No, and
It's my home.
Yeah, no, I
All
mean,
right.
okay, we understand. And like I said, we're not happy about this as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Canova, 147 Beach Street. Just to follow up on that, revenue streams. The lady in the third row had talked about thinking outside the box. You mentioned $13 million, having to fill the gap, state aid, restructuring, tax levy. Mr. Farrar, you and some of the other administrators, have said part of the reason why we're here is because of the inaccurate revenue projections. What was forecast was just off the charts, and that money wasn't coming in, correct?
There was a revenue shortfall this year in somewhere in the area about 2.5 million.
Yes. Big shortfall. So with that said, are you, getting back to the thinking outside the box, are you exploring, we have some business savvy people up there, are you exploring new streams of revenue so that perhaps going forward, we're not limited to state aid, restructuring, tax levies, reducing workforce, which I hate that term because there's human beings attached to it. But I just want to make sure that we're not limited to the layoffs, to what I just discussed. Is there anything being discussed as far as additional sources of revenue?
I don't know where else you would say that we would look for additional revenue.
Well, we could look north at the On3 campus. There are a lot of corporations there, and perhaps maybe some of them are interested in a tax write-off, maybe interested in donating lab equipment, whatever it might be. Have we had communication with some of the companies in Nutley to see if that's a possibility? Thinking outside the box.
You want to talk about as far as what we do with them?
As far as getting additional revenues, I've contacted everyone I could at the state level to appeal for more aid, more X-aid. Yesterday, I was with the mayor at Modern Meadows. We were talking through some donations as well as ways we could partner together up there. That's on the On3 campus. I know that getting money into the district is very important, and I'm appealing to everyone I can for more of that to come in.
It's appreciated. And just to follow up on the, apologies, to follow up on the security, the loss of security personnel, I should say that when you did present the budget, it did come with the caveat that all staffing and operating cost decisions surrounding the budget are subject to review and approval from the New Jersey DOE monitor. So with that in mind, was the presentation made, was the change in personnel that we were discussing earlier, was that made prior to the presentation, or was it made at the request of the monitor who does have approval, ultimate say?
Presentation was made prior to her arrival. She arrived the same day, I believe, was the first time we met. She is going through it. We are working together. That was in reference to the security footprint and our resources that we have in district, and rightfully so. I should not talk about too much about our security footprint, but we will have people at all the buildings as we did this year, and continue that for our students.
But we're still down one person. Just, that's clear. We're still down one position in security.
Yes, we are, but we are reshuffling our staff to provide the same footprint.
But the oversight that the security is moving into another school, the oversight
Sir, I
will.
can't comment on security moves, okay?
just another recommendation, if we could just stop using the reshuffling, reducing workforce. I mean, these are human beings here today, and I had a very emotional conversation with one of them. They're
Yes.
decent people, so just
And
please keep that in mind.
They are. They are. They're decent people. Everyone is. All of our staff is. But unfortunately, we cannot comment on security. We cannot comment on personnel. It's not that we don't want to comment. We cannot.
Thank you.
My name is Soraya DiMatteo. I'm a junior at Nutley High School. You said that you are letting go positions based on what is needed for students. What led to letting go a mental health specialist in the high school? Because to me, that seems like a very important position and an irreplaceable position.
Yeah, I apologize, but I can't comment on staffing decisions of that nature.
I didn't ask for a specific staff member. I asked what led to cutting these positions. You answered Tyler's question.
As mentioned, we've reviewed performance of all of our staff every year. The evaluators discuss different things resulting from that every year in every school district. Decisions are made based on staffing.
I would like you to know that there's no mental health specialist in the high school. There's just guidance counselors. So if you have a serious issue, they cannot help you. You don't have a trained psychologist. Now you just have guidance counselors that are meant for just grades, now that you've let her go. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Anna Green. I'm a senior at Nutley High School. I understand that there needs to be reconstruction with the teachers being terminated for the next year, but I was just wondering if there has been any reconstruction anywhere else, like the Board of Education.
So the Board of Education we're volunteers, right? We get elected, and we're volunteers. We do not get paid. Okay, this is not a paid position. We are here as volunteers. Okay, listen, you can come up and ask questions and you can make comments, but you know, we are, like I said, we are volunteers. We are not paid. This is not a paid position that we hold.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Claire Morgan, and I live at 22 Devosney Place. I'm new to the township of Nutley, and I, understand that you are here at your own will and on your own time. But this is, more than an executive level because you're dealing with the community. If you're not the people that can talk to us about why our teachers are being cut, or we can't discuss security, or like the young lady spoke about mental health, who do we talk to? Because we have rights, we live in America, and I think it's only fair that if you can't help us, there's someone from the state that's come in. Is a district attorney involved? Are there other people that can answer our questions that you guys cannot, outside of us emailing an info at something for us to go off of? Because all of the problems are real. And the solutions, I don't know how you're going to come up with them. And it's a big, big problem. But we need additional help. And by telling us, the people, that you can't discuss it, and initially a few weeks ago, sorry that you weren't going to cut, but now people are getting cut, there's a difference of what you're saying and what we're seeing, and it is our children, it's our livelihood, and we do pay. We pay taxes, and we're not even a blue ribbon school district. And we care. The PTOs of all the schools, everyone cares a tremendous amount to put all this effort in to the community, to the township. So I want to know who we can speak to outside of the board that could give us the information. And who can this be escalated to? Because as we all have compliance, if you can't do anything about it, there are always, that escalation so that the people can feel protected and we have our rights and things are done in a very lawful way.
So it's not that we don't want to, give you information.
I'm not saying you don't want to. I'm just saying you can't. And that's the bottom line. You can't. So we just need a solution, right? Like if you can't, that's not a problem. I respect that. I respect every single person's role and all of the time and the effort of you coming here and putting in your time. But it doesn't change the fact that we need an answer. And if you can't help us because things go wrong and they have gone wrong, and we as the community, we're trying to do something about it because it falls on us.
I guess it depends on your question, right? So what question is it that you're looking to have answered?
Is the DA involved?
We've answered that right now.
Maybe I missed the meeting.
Well,
but
but I'm saying we've had those questions asked and we've answered those questions.
Are they?
Okay, they are not.
Okay.
Okay, we have
That's
not,
fine.
our investigation so far has not proven that, has shown any type of malfeasance or any of that. But there, as we also, let me just finish the answer, I'm sorry.
Right.
Okay, but as we also mentioned at a prior meeting, there's going to be a forensic audit that's going to be done, not by us, by an independent outside firm.
Have you hired an outside firm?
No, we have not
Why?
at this point. That's going to be part of our discussions with the Department of Education.
Who's the one that makes the decisions on whether or not this is a DA case or not a DA case, and whether or not you guys have, with all due respect, the level of ability and specialty to handle something of this size at this scale?
So this board is not doing the forensic audit. That's going to be done by an outside firm. We're not.
But that hasn't been done yet.
Not-
You have not
that's
hired
gonna be
someone
done-
to do that yet.
That's going to be done in consultation with the Department of Education.
Okay.
Okay?
And who is the one who determines whether or not this is a case for the DA to investigate?
Well, anytime, if anything rose to like a criminal level, yeah, obviously things would go through myself as well. And in terms of giving the board guidance that, oh, yeah, this rises to the level in consultation also with the state monitor. If anything were like that to come about as a result of the audit or anything else. So they would consult with our office and we would.
So you guys need to hire an outside agency to do an audit. You've already been assigned a state person who needs to come in here and watch everyone do their job for 10 years. On top of that, your books and records need to be audited for X amount of years, and you don't find this to be at all something that should go to them so that they can investigate, which then would maybe open up doors for us as a community to get certain funding and help so that our teachers and our security and our mental health folks will remain in their position so our children and our taxes could remain decent and people can keep their jobs. I work in tax and compliance. I work with the IRS and I work with every agency in a state in the United States of America, in the UK, and in Turkey. So there's compliance, right? This is of a magnitude that I don't think you should have the right to say it's not for the DA.
Oh, that depends. You need the evidence.
What if I call the DA?
You need the evidence.
And I say
from
to the
auditors.
DA, I am a homeowner. I pay my taxes. I have a 6-year-old in school in your township. There's children in middle school and high school in which there's mental illness, suicides, sicknesses that we don't have the proper care for, that the Department of Education should be protecting. And if they can't, because the other people can't, and the other people can't, then it's time for the other people to come in in and give us the assistance that we need, because you guys don't have the resources or the capacity to do it in a way where it doesn't globally affect our township and the health and the well-being and the security of our children. I chose to live in Nutley. I came from North Bergen and from New York City. I chose to come here and invest my money in Nutley, and I have a child here and I have a family like all these other wonderful people, like you do too. And I don't believe that in the time that you found out about the mismanagement of the funds, moving into a budget, having such a huge deficit, that anyone here, with all due respect, has the ability to manage at this point in the game. And I think that the other people that should be involved, who have the capacities and the resources at a higher either state or government level, need to help. Otherwise, you have a town that's thriving. You have a community of people I drive by every day, and we all take care of our homes. We are a well-knit community. So that's what I want to say, is that, in my opinion, the DA should be called in, so that in the interim of you guys trying to figure it out, you're no longer the professional team for this. Get the right people in here so we don't have to waste our time. Our children are not at risk, and whoever needs the mental health will be able to have the resources to get it. Can we expect that? Can you call the DA in?
Thank you. We're working through the Department of Education.
No, I'm not talking about the Department of Education. That's a tier, right? So we have A, B, C, D, E, and F. And I just want to know, at what point does this catapult to another tier where there are other people with bigger eyes and other resources outside of what you have been able to contribute?
Ma'am, there's no evidence at this time. If there
You
is,
needed to have a state representative come in for 10 years. You're getting your books audited. You cannot provide us with information as to where the money is. How is that not criminal?
You have provided.
So ma'am, if I could interject a little bit, and I thank you for your comments, and quite frankly, the emotion matters. And I know you said it, these are people, these are children. We all have children here. I'm sharing a lot of the emotions you have. Since we identified what was going on in March, we've been under duress from a timeline perspective and a state statute perspective. And what does that mean? That means we were forced in less than 1 week to put a preliminary budget back to the state. And then we were forced over the next, call it 8 weeks, forced to put together a budget as we waited for support from the state for a monitor. Your questions have been asked many times, particularly around, we'll call it an investigation.
Okay, if I may, because I don't want to be the only one up here. I know other people want to speak.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I'm concerned, how you managed whatever books and records were kept to be in a place where no one knows what's going on, and you need an auditor and a state agent to come in here, we're beyond that conversation. I don't want to know, and I don't care. Because again, wait 1 second, please.
Mm-hmm.
I work in compliance.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the IRS, your taxes are due every year. And regardless what your problem is, you need to file them and you need to pay them. Bottom line, no one cares about a story, and we don't care about a story. Right now, you presented us with an issue that was created by whomever was involved and responsible. That is not our problem. You guys need to sort that out with the people you need to answer to. My only concern is what it is that you're doing now, and the fact that up until now, you were not able to, and I don't mean you, but whomever it was that's involved, and you are the committee that's representing the people who are in charge of all of this. Whatever you were doing, you were doing. Now you provided us with information, and we all have a big problem on our hands that we did not create. And our livelihood is directly impacted. I don't care if it's relatable to you. I don't. All I care about is that at this point, this has been 3 weeks going, 4 weeks going, however long it was that you guys found out, hey, we have like, a million plus of an issue going on, and no one really has an answer for it. That in itself is grand larceny beyond a degree.
I'd like to provide you an answer.
Let me say this.
Okay.
I don't care to know, okay, that you can relate to us, and I don't care to know about the measures you've taken thus far. What I want to know is when you guys are going to be bringing in another panel of specialists outside of an auditor and outside of who the state at this point made you take on, because you're not able to handle it. And you're not able to, on top of that, provide us the information that we need, which is making us understand that we need to speak to other people. And because you're telling us the only thing that you can do is cut our taxes, take away our teachers and our mental health, then you know what? We have a big problem, so we need to talk to the other people.
So I'd like to answer your question from a timeline, because you're asking a question that everyone is asking. The reason why I brought up the timeline is because one of the things we need to do is approve a budget, and then the state will fund us with our loan. Once we're funded with our loan, we will bring in an outside auditor. We're not picking them. Once the outside auditor comes in and performs a forensic audit, which will take between 4 and 6 months, that information would be given back to the state, and then all of the authorities that you would expect to see the forensic audit. So the answer is, our full expectation is we perform those tasks and get that in, but until then, we have to pass a budget for next year.
Okay. I think that maybe this is why we are in the problem that we're in, because of the thought process here. All you guys are wanting to think about is a budget, and what we're trying to figure out is what's going to happen next. So to me, I find that the fact that the district attorney's office that was not brought in, I think at this point you guys cannot handle the situation. And I don't think that it's fair to the community, to the people that are losing their jobs, to the uncertainties that we have as homeowners and the safety of our children, that we need to wait 4 months, 6 months for your process. Because if the district attorney came in, they would have a completely different process. And I guess this is where I'm getting at. I respect your process, but I just don't think that we're at the level that your process works, because it's all internal. This is all internal. And I feel outside of the state, because the state can only do what the state can do, that's what needs to happen, because it seems from what you've said to the other guests here tonight, you've maxed out of your resources, because the only thing you're pulling from, okay, are taxes. We don't know about employment. There are all these uncertainties, but they will, for a fact, come from us in either a form of money or the loss of a member of our community who serves us each day, or even worse, the life of our child, right? So I would like to say to the committee, because we're all free citizens to do as we choose, I would like you to have your meeting and consider moving this forward into the hands of people that have better resources, who can externally look at what everybody is doing and figure out a different way. Because there's absolutely no excuse to how or why on God's green earth the money and the gap is the amount that it is. It is incredible.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your comments. Thank you.
Hi, Cheryl Galasso, Evergreen Avenue. I'm also a staff member.
I'm sorry, can you just speak into the
Oh,
mic?
I'm
It's hard to
sorry.
hear from.
Can you hear me now? Now?
Yes,
Oh, better.
thank you.
Okay, sorry. I just have a couple of, I had a couple other questions, but I'll save those for Monday. You mentioned revenue other than taxes. What other revenues does the Board of Education have
State aid,
aside from state aid?
there's some,
Something where I'm looking for something that's really not costing the taxpayers, because state aid, just on the other end, gets us.
Yeah, we have some revenue that comes in from rentals. We have federal grants that we receive. We have some money that generates from our food service account.
Okay. And just one thing with staffing, I know you can't talk about staffing, but as far as who has been let go, I understand non-tenure first year's teachers that aren't renewed for performance, but in general, is it last hired, first fired? Do you look at, even with older staff members, like staff members aside from non-tenured or new, do you look at performance? Do you look at attendance? Do you look at other factors other than just they were the last one that was hired? Because we have people that, obviously I work in the school, so I see a lot of different people. There's people that go above and beyond nonstop all day long. There's also people that just do enough to skate by. I'm just wondering is that all taken into account when deciding who's going, who's staying, where we could cut, where we could move people? Is that taken into account, or is it just strictly last hired?
We can do it in two parts, Mr. Bania. When it comes to tenured staff, yes, it goes by seniority.
Right.
There are no rifts of tenured staff here. When it comes to non-tenured staff, and again, it's an administrative decision. Obviously, non-tenured can be non-renewed. In terms of need, how things are being restructured, and then you have your other category of teachers that are non-renewed for performance reasons. But in terms of the ones that are non-renewed for not performance reasons, just because of the RIF, that really is an administrative decision in terms of how he's going to allocate those teachers.
Right.
It's based on available district resources and where the need is for students.
Okay, and then if you had, who's going to take over the responsibilities of the people that, in other words, if you had someone who was doing this, now they're gone, who's going to take that over? It's just going to be distributed out to,
Yeah, that's the work through the administrative team. We'll work through finding ways to offer the same services to students with other resources.
right, okay. And I have one other question, and I do not know I think it's Makis. Do not know you at all, but I don't know if other people, I'm sure, have seen, there's rumors, there's things posted online about a working relationship with Mr. DePisa prior, with the county executive. Can you address that to put people's minds at ease that there's no conflict here?
I'm sorry, there is no conflict. I don't have a relationship with Mr. DePisa. I was an executive county business official in Bergen County. We were at the same meeting. The Bergen County officials, business officials, has a meeting once a month. As the executive county business official, I go to all those meetings to bring the information regarding budgets, regarding dates, regarding X, Y, and Z. So did I interact with Mr. DePisa at one of these meetings? I'm sure I did. Do I have a relationship with Mr. DePisa? The answer is unequivocally no.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know, the rumors are flying, and it's
Just so
better to
I
have it
don't
out in the
read,
open.
I don't read the Instagram and Facebook
I know, but unfortunately, a lot of people, that's where they get most of their news.
Well, but the answer is unequivocally no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Does anyone else wishing to come and speak?
Jessica Barber, 51 Montclair Avenue. I've been in my home for about 13 months now, and I have more and more regretted that choice since this news broke. That also came around the time where we got our tax bill, where our taxes went up at least $600 a month. So now my husband and I are now listening to a 5.27 tax levy and are questioning how we are going to afford to be able to stay in our home, which is what brought me down here, because somebody else also brought that up. And just the lack of accountability and transparency and just the lack of everything coming off of you right now, where you have to sit here and stare at me and look me in the eye and tell me that I deserve to pay for your mistake, because that is exactly what this is. I work in a public school. It is. I work in a public school, so I have an understanding of how budgeting does work. And if you're going to say that there is this giant question mark as to how that this problem became a problem, it is because someone wasn't doing their job. And you were elected to do a job for these people. And I didn't get to vote for you, but I get to pay for the mistake that was done by this Board of Education. That is disgusting. Also, David DePisa was the talk of the tri-state area when he did this to Lyndhurst 2 years ago. So to say that no one knew, in public education in this area knew of his reputation would be a lie. And aside from the fact that New Jersey does pass the trash on public employees, you're telling me this was not in his personnel file anywhere? Again, all it took was a Google. And again, you are part of a public board of education. It happened less than 3 miles away. You can't tell me you didn't know. So the fact that he was in charge of our finances, or the oversight of our finances, with an entire board of ed also in charge of overseeing our finances, again, I now get to pay for your failure as a board of ed. That is what you are telling me, because that is the only option. A tax levy is your only option. Another person said here, figure it out, and she is exactly right. Figure it out. Why should the residents of this town have to figure out either figuring out how to pay their taxes or how to sell their house in a town where they might not recoup their money? Because I will absolutely not make the money back on my home that I just bought if I try to sell it, because all somebody is going to do that tries to buy into this town is going to Google the school system, and this is going to be the first thing that pops up. So now I am stuck in a house that I might not be able to afford in a town that is going to start sinking faster than the Titanic, because this Board of Education is going to take it down. I have no questions.
Thank you.
Mark Albanese, Freeland Road, Nutley. The teachers are laying off. How long have they been here, an average? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, what?
Not any non-tenured teachers are
Okay,
here.
I'm asking you just average. How many years have they taught in Nutley?
I don't know what exactly with regard to all teachers.
Because if it was 3 years, their performance was good 3 years ago, all of a sudden it's not? Because you guys screwed up the money?
Yeah, you can't comment on how long.
Can't
each one's
comment,
been.
I know.
But don't confuse ones that are being riffed, not for performance. It's not performance.
Your answer to every firing is performance.
No, not every one.
Oh, not everyone? How many?
No. That I don't know. I can't answer.
Did any of the administration ever think of taking a pay cut? I know you're all not paid, but a couple of you are.
Yes, the contract is negotiated with the board, and that's a discussion to have.
Oh, so you can voluntarily take a pay cut, couldn't you?
Yes.
Are you going to do that?
I don't think I deserve an increment, yeah.
Are you going to, what's the merit bonuses are coming out soon, right?
I don't have any.
225.
Yeah. No, there is no.
There are no merit goals with our superintendent.
Oh, so who did the merit goals go to?
Are we allowed?
There's no merit bonus in his contract, and somebody did.
So who do they go to?
He doesn't get.
I'm not
merit goals.
referring to him. Who gets the merit bonuses? Obviously, somebody does.
No. No one's getting a merit
There
bonus.
there are no no one's getting merit
There's no
goals.
merit bonuses at all. Okay. That's it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caitlin, and I'm a junior.
My name is Karina Rivera, and I'm also a junior. We just wanted to address the effects the budget issues have had from the perspectives of two students from Nutley High School who are potentially losing an educator and a coach. On March 2nd, 2024, two female wrestlers, including a senior and myself, from Nutley High School made history by becoming two of the three females to ever compete in the New Jersey State Wrestling Tournament at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. Thank you. Thank you. I've come to stand here today in recognition of our wrestling coach, who is being affected currently by these circumstances, who made going to states possible, who should be able to dedicate himself to not just those he coaches on the mat, but to also his students who sit in his classroom every day. He was a wrestler at Nutley High School himself, but his senior season was cut short due to an injury. He had his hand raised one final time during his last dual meet of the season, which in my opinion did not indicate a victory. It represented opportunity. The opportunity to work hard all season with his coaches and teammates. The opportunity to represent a team that exemplified sportsmanship. The opportunity to become a coach and assist athletes in achieving their goals at a high school and a town where successes were acknowledged both on and off the mat. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to acknowledge the opportunity I was given to have this coach by my side the entire season as a female wrestler in a sport that everyone in this room can confirm is not easy. It is also not easy to be a coach or a teacher, but he managed to do it all. Losing our coach due to these circumstances would not only be a major loss to our athletic and history departments, it would be a loss felt throughout the halls of Nutley High School for many years to come.
Building off of that, myself, I am also a wrestler. However, I don't have an amazing track record as her. But this teacher has brought me to this team, and I will be forever grateful. This year, I've had a total health scare that wouldn't have been possible without me joining this team. And that is all because of this one teacher. Some of the teachers at Nutley High School who are being currently affected by budget cuts because of the circumstances that have happened during the Board of Education. Is this truly what is best for the students whom you wish to represent?
I want to thank you for coming up and speaking. This is not what we want to do. We don't want to cut teachers. We have to get within a sustainable budget. The answer to your question is no, this is not the best. We don't want to lose any of our wonderful staff. They're truly wonderful, and I understand your comments.
But still, why must teachers such as the one I'm speaking of be affected by this type of cut when there are other teachers who are amazing and inspirational individuals? Why should they be cut and other teachers take over this burden of handling more classes when our teachers are really overworked?
It's a difficult situation we're in, and unfortunately, there are laws on who's tenured, non-tenured. So it's very difficult. It's not just a simple, situation where you could address. It's very complicated and it's difficult. And we understand all of our staff are great. All of our students, they're amazing. We have a great school system. Unfortunately, we're just in a situation right now where we have this budget issue that is very challenging and we need to make difficult decisions.
But how is that in the interest of all the other students at Nutley High School?
It's difficult and it's very challenging. And unfortunately, there's not much wiggle room or way around it, right? You have only so much revenue that you have, and you have to reduce your expenses in order to match that revenue. And that's where the challenge comes in, is where do you make those adjustments? It's going to affect someone, but we're trying to minimize the effect. And that's where the challenges are. And unfortunately, we can't go into the specifics of that because it does involve personnel. But that's the challenge. You only have so much revenue, and you have to make sure your expenses, match that.
I understand that there's a lot of specifics that you guys can't go over, but is there a little bit more that you can give us? Because we understand that these budget cuts are because of the financial situation that the Board of Ed has. But is there anything else that can be done? Because is there anything else you can give us other than that?
I mean, it's the revenue that we generate, right, is a fixed number. And the expenses you have to match that to the revenue. And so you have to make them equal, right? And right now, the expenditures for the coming year were a lot higher than the money that we have coming in. So you have to balance that out with making adjustments, finding efficiencies, reducing certain areas. There's really no other way of doing that, and it's difficult. And that's where the administration has the difficult job of figuring this all out and trying to make it so that it's got the minimal impact on the school district and the students. Trying to keep a lot of the programs in place. That's this budget that we have that was presented last Monday night keeps our programs intact.
But firing teachers does affect the students incredibly.
Absolutely, it does. And we understand that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Gilberti, 65 Mapes Ave. I have a couple of questions.
Can you just speak in the microphone? Thank you.
Sorry about that. I have a couple of questions. The first would be in terms of the security officers. I know that you don't want to speak individually about them. I will ask, are we trading Class 3 officers for Class 2 officers in the schools? Are we downgrading the security?
No.
No? And the gentleman that currently is being reassigned, is he the backup for the security guards currently that would be absent should somebody not be there? Is he their backup?
Can't speak to the security plan, but he's
He is,
in our
right?
system.
So, I mean, you don't have to speak to it. He is that guy. So we are losing somebody in terms of security, right? We won't have coverage should somebody be out. That's the truth. Also, I have a question regarding, I've seen a few things about healthcare. We spent a lot of money on healthcare. Would it be possible to get a look at those bids prior to Monday's meeting? The 3 bids and the accepted bid in comparison to the 2?
I don't know what bids you're referring to.
Well, so I'm referencing one particular company, the IMAC bids. Can we see the bids that went against that company?
Again, I don't understand which bids you're referring to.
So IMAC won a contract with the town, right? With the Board of Education?
IMAC has a contract with the Board of Education.
Okay,
Yes.
was that a bidded out contract?
We can certainly look back to see, I believe we did renew their contract.
Awesome,
We
yeah,
can see when we renewed that contract and we can provide that to you.
Does policy call for all contracts awarded to have bids for it?
They're subject to RFPs, which is a little bit different under the law than bidding, but requests for proposals where professionals will make proposals.
We have,
And IMAC was renewed probably because it's on an annual basis. So it would have been at the May or June meeting of last year, and they get a year contract.
Okay, so do we have the three RFPs or the competing RFPs that came in?
Well, you keep
December?
referencing three, so I don't understand where exactly
so
that comes from.
Even, all right, so let's say it's two. Do we have a competing bid for it?
We will look to see what we have from when that occurred, and we will provide that.
And all that's subject to Oprah too.
Okay, yeah, I think there was an Oprah request filed for it, but it hasn't been answered yet.
Okay, we will look into that. Thank you.
That'd be great.
And let's try to keep our questions obviously specific to those 4 items that
I
are.
thought healthcare was on that. I thought number 4 was healthcare.
No, that's a healthcare waiver.
I thought it was like.
No, it's a healthcare waiver for the budget.
Okay. That's fair enough. That's all. I guess, we'll just go with that.
Thank you.
Oh, no, actually, one follow-up. There was a girl that asked about restructuring at the Board of Education. Yeah, okay, so I do have a follow-up. Not all board employees are volunteers, correct? There are paid people on the board's payroll?
Board of Education members? No.
Yeah, no, not Board of Education members. There's people that work for the Board of Education in the Board of Education offices, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Have they been restructured? Because we're affecting the children, so it would only make sense that your guys' work, your guys' assistants would be affected as well, right?
So when you say our assistants, it's.
They work for you, right?
They work for the school district.
All right, so if we're gonna
So
cut our
there's,
teachers.
Mr. Gabody, as we mentioned in prior meetings, okay, there's a full review from top to bottom. Okay, so that is something that occurs. And that's
Okay,
something that
so
has.
who reviews the Board of employees? The Board of Education's
The
employees?
superintendent is the one who reviews all of the
So
employees.
if the people have lost faith in the superintendent, and I'm just speaking for myself, but if the people have lost faith in the superintendent and the superintendent is the only person that's making all of these decisions, where are we left to go?
Thank you, Mr. Gabody. Thank you.
No, thank you doesn't answer the question, no. The question was, if we've lost confidence, right, as citizens, where can we go?
This is a time for public comment, all right? Every question does not have to be answered. You can comment, make comments on things.
Is the state monitor here? Are you guys the state monitor's office?
All your questions need to be directed to the
Yeah,
chair.
please direct them to me, Mr. Gabody.
Okay, Mr. Ferraro, is that the state monitor?
Yes, that's the state monitor.
Okay, Mr. Ferraro, can the state monitor help us? Can we talk directly with the state monitor at any point throughout this process? Or are we left to mediate through the board that has let us down?
Well, the state monitor is here on behalf of the state of New Jersey.
Mr. Ferraro,
Okay.
can she please help us?
I'm not here to ask her to speak or not speak.
But I can't.
Okay?
I have to talk to you. I
But you-
can't address her. So my question to you is, can she please help?
She is here.
Please?
She is here to help. That's why she's here.
Okay, so,
Okay, that's why she's
but we
here.
can't talk to her. She's not here to help us. Okay. Okay, and, well, they're supposed to. Yeah.
Please direct your comments to
Mr.
the
Gabody,
chair,
please.
not to the audience.
Oh, okay. So they're supposed to, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gabody.
Hello, I'm Russell Vandezilver, a sophomore of Nutley High School. And I just sort of wanted to add on to what Karina and Caitlin were saying earlier. As I speak now, I'm currently standing in front of both people from wrestling and baseball who all have come here in the name of Coppola, who has meant so much to all of us. I spoke to Coppola today during lunch, and when I was talking to him about what had transpired, he said that coming forward, there was no spot for him in Nutley High. And I just don't think that that's right at all. I just don't understand how you could sit up there and say you understand and you care about the woman who may not be able to afford her own home, but you yourselves aren't losing your jobs and you're not potentially losing your homes. And I just don't think it's really right to let somebody who stands out among other teachers like Mr. Coppola go, because he has meant so much to each and every one of us.
Thank you.
Christian Sebastiano, 443 Prospect. So this school year, I believe the budget was about 74 million. And in order to have the same services, same personnel, same programs for next year, it would have costed 87 million. So that's where that shortfall came from. Is that correct? About?
It's the program this current year is 87 million. Okay, next year, when you look at the program, if you took this year's program and just moved it into next year, there would be a $13 million difference.
Got it. So for that 13 million, part of that is inflation, right? Things just cost more. So whether it's insurance, things cost more. So we're getting state aid, and you're having some other aid, but then a big portion of that, I think from your presentation, I might be wrong, about 6 million is going to come from some sort of reduction in services. So what is going to stop us from being here next year at this exact same time, asking you these exact same questions, where you're going to have to cut people again because everything's just going to cost more and there's going to be a deficit again? What are you doing today in order to address the shortfall so that it's sustainable over time and it's not for this year, because then next year you're going to have to do it again and again and again?
Well, that's the point of what we're trying to do for next year, is create a baseline. I think that's what we discussed at the last meeting, is creating a baseline to which then to build from. Right now, we have reliable revenue that we're projecting for next year, which will balance out with the expenditures, which resulted in a lot of the things that we talked about, which was the additional state aid, the tax levy increase, and obviously the cuts and the adjustments that are going to be made. But that brings us to a new baseline. Next year's budget, we're going to work to make sure that doesn't happen. Our state monitor is here with us, and that's going to be a responsibility that we're going to be working with her to make sure that doesn't happen during the course of the year.
So a part of that is hopefully getting another grant from the state, getting more federal money, which isn't promised, right?
No, but we advocate for ourselves every year for additional state aid. There's a formula there that the state has. There's school districts that have seen state aid that's been taken away from them. We were one of those school districts a few years ago where we did have state aid taken away from us.
I remember.
So we're going to advocate for that. We're making the adjustments on the expenditure side, and that's we're creating a budget that is sustainable. That's the goal.
So does that sustainability take us back to a 2% increase of our taxes, or is that going to be that 5% every year in order to keep us?
Well, obviously I can't. I could speak for myself. I am one person who hasn't, over the last many years, has very rarely voted for budgets over 2%. I think we need to create budgets that are sustainable within that, but we're in a challenging situation now, which is why we're at this 5.2%. I can only speak for myself, but that is something that will have to be addressed next year.
Okay.
And my goal, hopefully, is to be within the 2%.
Okay.
But these are you brought up a point before that. The times are not just challenging for Nutley. I mean, if you just Google other school districts, these are the same challenges that are happening with many of the other school districts throughout the state. You have healthcare costs that are rising. You have salaries that are rising. All the costs across the board are increasing, and that's what's making a lot of these issues more challenging for the school districts.
I get that. I mean, that's across all industries. So, I know that in my job that we have to continuously cut things over the past few years in order to make our budget, whether it's people or programs. So I don't see how next year you're not going to have to cut more things or cut more people in order to meet the budget, the amount of money that you have to spend. I get you don't know exactly what's going to happen next year, but like we have to know, people have to understand, like, we're going to be back here again. Maybe isn't going to be as drastic, but there's no chance that this isn't going to happen again to some degree.
Thank you.
Hi, sorry, I forgot one question. I was looking at the check journal, just as for expenditures, and I'm just wondering why it doesn't tell you what the check is for. It tells you who it's payable to, the amount of the check, but it doesn't say what for. In other words, I'll just give an example. There's one here for Educare LLC for $10,875. What's that for? Like, what are we buying or what service are we getting? All the checks here, they don't say what they're for.
So I'm not exactly sure what that.
This is from the minutes of the board meetings. This is from the bills.
Yes, but there's none of that on tonight, so I don't know specifically
Well,
what.
because it's all part of the budget. This is all money we're spending. I'm just asking why it doesn't say are we getting a service? Are we buying something? Just so for transparency, so we can say, oh, I see, that's what you're getting. I mean, there's $3,000 to ShopRite. What are we buying at ShopRite? $8,000, oh, no, not that one. $17,000 to Macquarie Equipment Capital. Like, are we renting equipment?
Ma'am, I think we're getting a little bit off track here because that deals with last year's budget. That's last year's budget. We're here to talk about this year's budget.
Well, this is what, I'm just asking why the check register doesn't say what they're for. What are we spending this money for? It's all part of the budget.
What's Edgeseer? Just answer what Edgeseer is.
Edgeseer is our homebound online that we pay for homebound instruction when kids have to go home instead of at school for instruction.
Okay, but in the future, is it possible to
Your point
have?
is you want a description on the check.
Right, like what we're spending the money on, so people know what it's for. Does that make sense?
We could certainly look into that. I mean, obviously, if it's something we can do, we will. Sometimes there may be things we can't because it's personnel related or student related, but we
Well,
could.
do have to say, there is personnel, because there's a lot of checks written to Dave DePisa.
Thank you.
Doesn't say for.
Hi, my name's Thea DeFabio, and I'm a freshman at Nutley High School. I know you said you didn't really want anything personal, but it feels kind of personal because by you laying off all these teachers, it's affecting the students more than anyone. And just like Russell said, one teacher, Sabino Capola, he really changed and helped a lot of us by being a coach for 3 different sports. As you can see, there's a lot of kids here, and he's coached and been a teacher to a lot of them. And and it's just he's a really good teacher, and it feels unfair that one person's mistakes that's took all this money, he has to live with it now after he dedicated his time to being a teacher and to his students by coaching 3 extra sports outside of his school time and his job. I just I want to understand, I know that there were a lot of teachers fired, and I know this is personal, but I feel like it's really wrong, and we all feel like it's really wrong that this one specific teacher is fired because he's done, I feel, so much more extra than other teachers. It just doesn't feel right.
No, we understand. We understand that, and when we say personal, we're not saying it's personal. It's personnel. So when it's a personnel matter, we cannot discuss the personnels that matter with regard to anyone in the district.
I also understand you volunteered for these jobs, but central office across the street has not, and they get paid very well off my parents' tax dollars. Will that office be reconstructed going into the school year? Because this is obviously their mistake.
There's been efficiencies and restructuring from top down.
Is there anything else you have to say for affecting the rest of my high school career with your layoffs? I just like.
This is, as I said before, this is very difficult. These are challenging times. And I understand that the students and the way that you're there supporting someone that you feel very strongly about. And we appreciate that. And that is something that's very commendable that you're doing that, and all of the students are doing that. This is not something that is making the residents happy. Obviously, it's not making the board happy, but there are difficult decisions that have to be made. And these are some of the recommendations that are coming down to the Board of Education from our superintendent. And so these are just difficult times. But we understand and appreciate what you're saying and all of the support that you have for someone who's very special and dear for you.
Jacob Harlow, sophomore. I understand you guys have volunteered for all these positions.
Yes, we are.
So how could you still consider yourself volunteers, as the money from the budget is obviously going to somebody?
So the money from the budget is going to our school district.
I'm talking about the stolen or lost money.
So I think that's something that we've discussed before. There is no evidence that money's been stolen.
The lost money, how could you consider yourself volunteers as somebody is getting the lost money?
Who's getting the lost money?
I don't know. You tell me.
Okay, well, there's no evidence that money was stolen. Okay.
I didn't say that. I'm talking about the lost money is obviously going to someone. So how are you considering yourself a volunteer still?
So at a prior meeting, we discussed the issue and how we got here, and that there was an overstatement in revenue and an understatement in multiple budget expenditure line items that resulted in the situation where we are currently with the 23-24 year. That doesn't mean that money's missing. That money is there are still programs, there are still salaries, there's things that are occurring between now and the end of the year that are going to be paid for. It's just that there was a deficit to cover that because of those overstated revenues and understated expenditures. There has been no evidence so far that money was stolen. And we as Board of Ed members are volunteers. We do not get paid. Thank you.
Nick Palumbo, 50 Kensal Ave. So your mission statement as our school is to challenge, inspire, and empower students. So obviously, one teacher in particular, Mr. Capola, has inspired many students as they showed up here. Half of us didn't even know there was board meetings like this, and we showed up because of him and other teachers that were wrongfully being fired. And I just want to say how embarrassing it is as a town that it's coming to this for a teacher that won Teacher of the Year in last month. So you guys said he was the best teacher in our school, and then also coached several sports, obviously impacted many students that are also here, and you guys are firing him for no reason, as he was also not the least experienced teacher in his department, which you guys said was the reason you were firing teachers. And the reason this is happening is because you guys mismanage money, which we all know wasn't mismanaged. It was, you guys all have a play in it because you guys are in charge of keeping the money, and where'd the money go? You guys are saying it's not because of that. We all know you guys have a hand in it, and you guys are impacting teachers that are working hard and following what you want every single day for the students and following your mottos and mission statements, and now you're firing them because of that. It's embarrassing as a town. It's embarrassing as a board.
Thank you.
Santino Ruiz, junior, Nutley High. I just don't understand how you can fire a teacher not even 2 weeks after he wins Teacher of the Month. How does that, make sense to you guys as a board? How does that go through your heads? Yeah, let's hear it.
And I know it's frustrating, and I know how much a teacher and a coach mean to. I used to be a coach too. I was a wrestling coach and a football coach for a high school.
So how would you feel in that position then?
I wouldn't feel very well at all, to be honest with you. But and not to shut you down and not to avoid things, but like personnel decisions, like and what goes into those decisions, they legally can't discuss. I know it's frustrating, but as the lawyer, I have to caution them that they can't get into the details of why the decision was made on a person-to-person basis.
But as you saw, all of these kids in this room, they were all touched by Coppola in some way, shape, or form. He has a place in all their hearts, and you just throw them out like that. Like how doesn't make sense to us. See, somebody yelling horrible makes no sense to anybody in this goddamn room.
Okay, so we usually allocate 20 minutes for these public discussion portion. We're already at an hour and a half, so we're gonna give it another 5 minutes, but then we're gonna close down the public comment portion because we do have the 4 agenda items that we have to address. Thank you.
Sorry. Throughout this discussion here, there's been a big emphasis on this theme of sustainability, right? Notably economic sustainability, and that's where the budget cuts are coming from, which, on paper it makes sense. We don't have the money, so we need to budget, but that doesn't take into account the sustainability of the quality of our education that is to come, right? By laying off teachers, class sizes are going to be increased. There's going to be 30 or more kids in every single class. Some teachers can't handle it, and that's not any fault to them, and it does a disservice to a lot of students who can't learn in an environment that might be more hectic, right? It'll affect extracurriculars, right? I'm aware that one of the band teachers is being cut. That could affect the marching band. That's a huge costly investment that also, not to mention, is one of the greatest programs in this district, and yet it's being harmed by this. And say what you want about this economic sustainability, we might survive financially, which even then we might not, given tax increases for all the people in the audience, and teachers, a lot of which live in Nutley, who are being laid off. Sorry. Not only is it's still going to harm us economically, but it's going to harm the quality of our education. There's less people working, there's too many students, and programs are going to be hurt drastically by it, whether it be coaches, teachers, clubs, and other extracurriculars.
So we addressed the class size at our presentation last week, and a lot of these restructuring is going to have minimal impact on the class size. In the middle school, you're going to see an increase of somewhere between 21 that we are currently to about 24 kids per class, and that's well below still the state recommended numbers. So we look, that's something the administration looks at. Those are factors that come into their decision making to make sure that whatever the changes are going to have minimal impact on our students and our programs, and that's what this budget does for next year, has minimal impact on those. We're keeping a lot of those programs in place that you just referenced. Unfortunately, when it comes to personnel, that's where the difficult decisions are made, and it's not always easy, and it's definitely not popular. And we appreciate and we value what you and a lot of your friends are up here supporting someone that you feel that strong about. And sometimes those are the decisions that are beyond our control. And a lot of that is
you're the one, you're making the decisions.
But as our lawyer mentioned, though, some of those decisions are not under our control. As to
then whose controls it under?
No, it's based on legal. I'll let our attorney discuss that again and try to explain it.
Okay, well, when you answered Mr. Sebastiano's question very early on about following mine about the process for which you terminate teachers in this sort of situation, that it starts with seniority, right? Whether or not they're tenured, and then it boils down to observations by state employees. Am I correct in that
Well,
assessment?
it depends. There's two categories. One category is observations and non-renewals based upon performance. Then there's the categories that are just being non-renewed due to the RIF because there's just a reduction in force. So there's two different categories there. But I just want to remind everyone, you're at like 4 minutes right now. I know the president had extended it for 5 minutes. I think there's a couple other people that are back there.
Yeah, so we're gonna, we're already going above the hour and a half here. We had only allocated 20 minutes for these discussions. So we have the 4 agenda items we still have to address.
Yeah, that can happen. I mean, I think the people who are here are willing to stay, are they not? Are you not willing to stay? And
No, we are willing
hear
to stay,
everyone
but,
else?
but we need to also move on with the meeting, and we've addressed a lot of the questions, a lot of the concerns, we've answered those, and so I understand there's a lot of emotion here, and I understand it's emotional for you because of, you and your friends, you value this individual, and we understand that. But like we said, these are difficult decisions that have to be made, and they're based on not just looking at one area, they're based on looking at the entire district.
Even then, as I was going to say before, the process since, we're all out in the open here right now, the process by which Sabino Coppola was terminated is your logic is flawed in that you're saying that it starts with, that seniority plays a role in it, when there's other teachers who have less seniority than him who have not been terminated.
And you make perfect sense in terms of logic, but it's according to law. And we have to follow what the laws are, especially when it comes to seniority and
Well,
tenure.
is the law not that seniority affects it? That's what you said.
Of tenured staff, yes.
So then the subjective observations should be what dictates whether or not teachers are terminated. And the subjective observations, I get that these aren't state employees, but I feel like the impact that this specific teacher has had on all these students and on myself and even on the parents by extension is undeniable and should not be just swept under because the state employee doesn't agree.
You're over the 5 minutes now.
Oh, thank you. And we will, I don't know how else to explain it. And I just want to say thank you because you've shown that obviously you feel very dear for this individual, as everyone else has.
Well, not exactly.
We're over the 5 minutes.
I'd say figure it out because you're not getting the same reaction for, another teacher. And I guess I get that these decisions have been made, but, you guys have the power. Just reconsider it. Try to figure it out. Think outside the box.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna take one more question, and then I'm gonna ask for a motion.
Okay, so I'm going to build off of what Nick and Tyler both said. So when you Google the Nutley Board of Ed, according to the Nutley Schools website, it says the Nutley Board of Education is guided by the mission of the Nutley Public Schools, which is to challenge, inspire, and empower students to become creative, confident, passionate, self-directed citizens who actively and purposefully contribute in our global society. So my question to the board is how your solution to make up the lost money is in the best decision of your students. By taking away their favorite teachers, by their sports, their electives, their mental health care professionals, every reason that gives these students the motivation to go to school in the first place, how is this the best solution for the students? I have spent the last 4 years of my high school career being my class vice president, completely volunteer time, just like you said you all do, voluntarily. And as my time, I have tried to enhance the community at the Nutley High School by building a student body that is so very little. The school spirit in this town, so very little, because of maybe it's our administration, maybe it's the students as the problem, but we lack the resources in our school to begin with to have this happy environment. So by taking away the little happy things we have to create, completely changes the entire dynamic of our building. How is the reconstruction in the better of us as the students, and why are we directly facing the repercussions of your mistakes?
So thank you for that. And obviously, what's clear tonight is that with all of our students that came out and spoke, you're right, something right's happening, right? In the sense that you felt the need to come out. And that's something that at least shows that we do have a good school district, because obviously, if you didn't care, you wouldn't come out. You wouldn't be here tonight, as all the other students, right? And we understand that. So obviously, that's something that I want to just point out and thank all of you for doing that. And it's very challenging, obviously, I keep saying that, but these are not decisions that are easy to make. And so unfortunately, we have to submit a balanced budget. And so that balanced budget is something that has to be submitted to the state. And so with that, we're very difficult decisions.
You keep saying the difficult decisions throughout this entire meeting tonight, but the difficult decisions you are making are directly impacting all of us. Have you taken the time to ask us how it is going to impact us? How your decisions are impacting us?
So during the course of the last month and a half, we've heard from many, many people in the community.
Have you spoken to students? Have you asked students how they feel that you are taking away their favorite teachers, their favorite coaches, their sports, their favorite electives, their courses?
I don't believe, and our superintendent can discuss this, but let me just, so in this budget process, there are many, many areas. I understand.
It's a yes
but
or no question. It's either yes,
Okay.
you did speak to us, or no, you didn't.
So I'll turn it over to our superintendent. Let me just give you just one, okay. All right, so we'll turn it over to our superintendent. Go ahead.
In this process, we looked at the needs of keeping our programs going and how we could best do that for our students. So decisions were made based on the riffing procedures to match the budget that we have based on keeping our programs going. That was our biggest goal, hearing from everyone, keeping our music program, our special education, our AP courses, all of those things. So that's how the decisions were made.
But did you ask the students? Did you ask the band students how they would feel about their band teacher being cut? Did you ask the students with mental health issues how they would feel next year when their teacher who supports them wasn't there? When the kids who played baseball last year, flag football, wrestling, and tackle football, did you ask them how they would feel when their coach would be cut?
I think the answer is no student would want any teacher cut, and we're doing our best to keep the programs going in the school district.
But again, so no students, the Board of Ed is to serve the students, to serve the education in our town, and yet no students can have any involvement in any decisions that have been made throughout this entire process.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're going to end up the public comment portion. This is the last one. This is the last question. Okay. This is going to be the last question, and then we're going to end the comment portion of this meeting.
Brent Von Roth, 32 Colonial Terrace. Brent Von Roth, 32 Colonial Terrace. One, I want to thank all the children that have come out just to make their statements. I understand that this wasn't part on it, but they did come out because they have emotions. So thank you for coming out. But the question I have, and I know now the state's here, and I'm not going to direct it right to the state, but I'm one that works for a state agency, and our fiscal year 24 is coming to a close. And we have a budget we have to meet in emergency management. And then we have to present our fiscal year 25. Now, working in emergency management, there's a lot of vendors we deal with, multiple. A lot of equipment we order, multiple. And a lot of answers to our commissioner that we have to answer, and it has to be done before July. And we already had it in place in May. Why? Because our director has to approve it before it sends it up to the board. So with the state here, again, it's not going to them, but I hope, based on the investigation that's going to be made by whoever it is, looks at every vendor, and I hope they look and Mr. Appizi, whatever check was cut, whoever's responsible, I think those vendors should be vetted. Because if we don't find that 9 million, 7 million, 11 million, we're going to be doing this to the next teacher next year. And if we don't get it, and if he's not criminally charged, are we going to then create a civil case against him? Because I don't think you're getting the money from the state, because I don't think they have it, because they're working on other projects and or the federal. But do we have a plan in place? Is a question to our board, our volunteers, or whoever represent the people that came out here today. Do you have a plan to either potentially go civil action towards Mr. Appizi to get the money from him or insurance or something to make up the void? Because I don't think we're going to close the gap. I don't. But if you can answer that, at least if that's a plan
So-
outside the box.
What I can answer is that our state monitor is here, and that's an indication that we are going to get funding from the state.
But again, you get the funding from the, but if we don't get the 9 million back, because I don't think we're gonna close that deficit. So when we don't close that deficit, 2 years, 3 years, you've already had townspeople come in that had never been here, wanted to invest in Nutley, and already leave. I don't know her name, but I know she's still here, that's on Montclair. But you know what? Those are people that build this town. And I think all of you know that we've been in this town for many years, some of you on that board. And I'm going to tell you, if you don't figure this out or answer those questions, where we're going to get the 9 million back, not from the state. There's a lot of funding that they give to others. We need to find a way to get it from Mr. Appizi or someone where we can have civil action against them and or know the vendors, because I hope that whoever's the investigators, I hope you share with everyone so we can see the vendors that get vetted and checks cut, because it seems to me 9 million, if it wasn't taken directly, it was given to someone else. So that's it. I just hope that we have a plan for
Thank you.
that.
Thank you. Okay, can I have a motion to close the public portion? Second? All in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Battaglia, can you move finance resolutions 1 through 4?
Mr. President, I'd like to move finance resolutions 1 through 4 as written.
Discussion?
Mr. President?
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes.
We were put on hold for all this. I understand there was a finance committee. I personally have not received any information from beyond last week and today. We had put this all on hold so the state monitor could review it, the budget, when I say it. Have there been any material changes to the budget that was presented to us last?
No.
Based on the budget, now that it's balanced at the 5.25%, and the massive, disgusting cuts we've had to take out of the personnel, does this budget allow us to say that we no longer have to cut anyone beyond this budget passing today?
Yes, the preliminary budget, the cuts associated with the preliminary budget are completed.
Might want to repeat that.
The cuts associated with the preliminary budget have been completed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Balsamo? Mr. Battaglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Dancheck Martin? Dr. D'Elia?
Yes.
Mr. Fraginels?
No.
Mr. Kaczynski? Mrs. Quirk?
Yes.
Mr. Scotty?
Yes.
Mr. Ferraro?
Yes. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? I'm sorry, is there? No, that was last, that was, these were the only 4 items tonight. So, motion to adjourn? Mr. Kaczynski? Okay. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone.